Good evening. Welcome to the Community Awareness Committee's March panel discussion on emergency preparedness. I am Trish Steiner, Chair of the Community Awareness Committee. We are a committee of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. The Neighborhood Safety Commission is comprised of individuals appointed by the chairman and the district commissioners. We welcome and thank you for attending this evening and welcome those of you who are watching on TV 23. Our committee members are Vicki Plunkett, Pearl Roberts, and Joel Cope. Vicki, Pearl, and I will be available to take your written questions from the audience. Please turn your cell phones off or on silent as your phone will interfere with the broadcasting of this discussion. Our moderator this evening is Kim McCoy, Director, Victims Witness Unit, Office of the District Attorney. We especially want to thank Kim for being our phenomenal moderator. Kim will now introduce our distinguished panel members to you.
Thank you, Trish, and good evening and welcome to all of you for being here with us this evening. Our topic tonight is emergency preparedness. So we have a panel of distinguished members from around the Cobb County community who can talk to us about what we as citizens need to do to prepare ourselves for an emergency. And then if we find ourselves in the middle of that emergency, what we can do to survive and get through that emergency. So if we can take just a minute, I want the panel members to introduce themselves. And if you will tell who you are, just a little bit about yourself, whatever you would like our audience to know, and a little bit about your agency, and then we'll get started, or your involvement, and then we'll get started with the questions. So we'll start with Chief Kreider.
Hello, I'm Randy Kreider. I'm the fire chief at Cobb County. I've been in the fire service in October, be 34 years. And here in Cobb County, we provide fire and emergency services to all of unincorporated Cobb County and including the cities of Powder Springs, Kennesaw, and Acworth. We have 29 strategically located fire stations throughout the county that provide us the ability to respond quickly, and we think that the citizens here in Cobb County are getting a very good service from our organization, although we strive to make things better, but that's our main purpose here in Cobb County as an organization, is to provide fire and life safety to the citizens of Cobb County.
Thank you, Chief. Captain?
Yeah, I'm Captain Jeff Patelis with the Police Department, Cobb County Police Department. August will be 33 years. I'm Precinct Commander for Precinct 1, which is the Kennesaw and North Cobb area. The Cobb County Police Department, similar to the fire department, has multiple stations. We have 5 precincts strategically located throughout the county and obviously run 24 hours a day and are there to serve the citizens.
Thank you, Captain. Mr. King?
My name is Bernard King. I'm with Cobb County Emergency Management Agency, which is a partner agency that helps our first responders, the police officers and firefighters, and our Department of Transportation. All of our partners respond during disaster. So we're kind of a facilitator, a resource to go to help them get organized. I've been with Cobb for 2 years, retired law enforcement out of the metropolitan Atlanta area, and had been with Kennesaw State's Office of Strategic Security and Safety prior to coming to Cobb County. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thanks for being here. I'm going to call you Miss Deanna to
That's
shorten
fine.
it a little bit if you
It's
don't
all
mind.
good. Thank you for having me as well. My name is Deanna Hendrickson, and I am here primarily as a citizen of Cobb County. I've been in Cobb County the second time I started in '06, moved in, and I'm here primarily as part of the emergency preparedness that my background is from Kennesaw State University's Crisis Coordinator Program, trained in CERT, basically from Bernard when he was there on staff, and then moved up to being a CERT instructor as well as a CERT program manager now, and we run classes there at Kennesaw State, as well as I work with Bernard and other agencies around to assist in training as many citizens as we can. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you as well. So I promised we had a panel of distinguished members this evening, and I know each of you bring a wealth of information and knowledge to our viewers. We're going to start with a very basic question, and I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to answer that. So just tell us, what does emergency preparedness mean to you? And from your agency's perspective, what's the message you would send out in a brief message about what emergency preparedness is?
Well, from the fire department's perspective, I would have to reiterate over and over and over again that planning is the key to surviving any type of emergency. pre-planning before the incident happens, making sure that you communicate with family members what you're going to do in case of a given emergency, whether it be a flood, whether it be tornado, whether it be fire. Pre-plan, contact those agencies within the county to get some guidance on what you can do to plan for various types of emergencies. And obviously, that's what the focus of this meeting is tonight, is planning for those events that are unexpected or those that you know are coming. And again, I would just have to reiterate, contact those agencies within Cobb County. Let them help you create a plan for you and your family, or if you happen to be in the workplace when the incident takes place, make sure that the organization that you work for has an emergency plan for any given event. So from the fire department's perspective, I would just have to say, plan. Go over those plans with your family or your organization where you work so that you'd be prepared to respond appropriately.
Thank you. And Captain, I know the police department does respond to natural disasters and things of that nature, but many of the emergencies that you respond to are human-created.
Correct.
So is there a different perspective in preparing for that type of emergency as opposed to a natural disaster type?
There is. I would echo what the chief said in planning and preparing. Having your family understand what's expected from them and how to respond in certain situations. As we all know from training, and anybody that's been in training, your mind reverts back to whatever you've been trained to do in those times of stress. So if there's nothing there, then there's a void, then it has nothing to respond to. So I would agree with the chief wholeheartedly. You're correct in that some of the emergencies that people will encounter are man-made. I would stress that people need to be vigilant and be mindful of their surroundings at all times. You're less likely to become a victim if you don't isolate yourself and find yourself in a place by yourself. So travel in groups, only park in lighted areas, use good judgment where you go, when you go, particularly. Sometimes the shortest path home may not be the safest path home. So I would say, continue to be on the lookout all the time, and not just for yourself, but for others. Report any suspicious activity that you see. The police department would rather respond repeatedly to a call that doesn't turn out to be anything, rather than to be 2 minutes late for something that did. So always be aware of your surroundings, and don't ever hesitate to call us and let us come and escort you or help you when you feel those urges.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. King?
Well, it's good to know that we're all in unison, that largely it is about not only planning, but the mitigation component, the situational awareness of knowing what threats or what risks can be there. I call it sometimes stirring the common sense gene pool and going back to the basics of understanding, and sometimes that has not been taught, so it's seeking that training and that awareness that you can build from, because we always can say we wish we had, when it's so much better to go ahead and take those small steps and get ready for the what ifs we've faced here, in that we can't control weather, and sometimes we can't control our fellow man, to determine when something's going to happen. And we know it's going to happen. It's a matter of when is it going to happen. So why not start planning? Why not start preparing? And use the tools and resources that we have abundantly here in Cobb County, or from even the state or federal level, to be aware and be prepared.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Deanna, do you have any additional words of wisdom for us?
Just a few from the citizens' viewpoint. Primarily because when something bad is going to happen, those first responders could be overwhelmed and not be there. And that is the primary mission of CERT, is to make sure that you as a citizen take care of yourself and your family first. And then if you are able to and feel comfortable, then you go out and you help your neighbors and so forth. And so the key is, in our CERT training, we teach you all those vital tools. We provide you with all the information on how to create your escape plan, how to put together a preparedness kit, what do you need to stay in for 3 hours, 3 days, however much you need. And so to me, that's the beauty of what we teach as CERT. is to make sure, and it's free training. That's the other really good benefit. And so it's really just a matter of, like they've said, I mean, everything is straight in a pattern. It's being prepared. The more prepared you are, the more able you're able to act fastly and properly to that situation. So tapping into those resources, whether it's through the Cobb EMA or the various other organizations through the county that we're training and getting in place. So taking advantage of that free training. And also there's online training and stuff that we can point you to. So if you're not sure, then reach out, and it's there for the asking.
Great. I want to stay with Mr. King and Ms. Deanna for a few minutes, and if you can just talk to us about what the CERT training is. How would somebody get involved? What would they expect from the training? What's the outcome of the training, and what should somebody know after they finish the training? So
Okay.
whoever wants to start.
From an official position, I'll take the start, and then I'll turn it over to her, because she has been as a customer of this service, where I'm basically the provider. It is free training, 21-hour minimum of training that can be delivered in any breakdown to meet the 21-hour obligation. But it helps people to think about what threats may be around, pretty much around the house every day. Because the first thing is, what is an emergency? An emergency is anything that happens unexpectedly that changes or alters what I'm dealing with at the moment. It could be a flat tire. It could be plumbing backup. It doesn't have to be a snow apocalyptic event. It doesn't have to be a zombie apocalypse type of thing, or an act of terror. It can simply be a disruption of every day that changes things. And we've sometimes given up through convenience our common sense. I use the example of dead battery on cell phones because many of us don't even know numbers anymore. We just know names. So it's having that information to where when that battery does fail and you can't charge it, where is it at? So we build very simply, very commonsensically on small levels, and then encourage you to seek further training. So the citizens, like Deanna started, became aware, and now we're trying to multiply that. And with that, I'm going to toss it off to her to elaborate more on how you can find out some of the resources, because she's an example of that.
Basically, you can reach out and look on the website. They have a web page to where you can actually sign up for training, whether it's through the Cobb EMA. We also offer it on Kennesaw State University's campus for our faculty staff members, so it is free to them as well. We are growing the program. We just went through, a big outreach to get all the training from FEMA up in Emmitsburg, Maryland, to make sure that we had the proper certifications to then launch the program full-blown there on campus. And so essentially, it walks you through 9 different sections that will cover. You start off with disaster preparedness. What is it? Recognize your hazards. How do you create an escape plan? How do you put a pack, they call it a go kit or something, to be prepared so that each family member has what they need. If you have disabled family members, or you have elderly or even pets, they teach you how to actually be prepared for your specific situations. And then it walks you through fire safety and how the basics, what type of a fire should you approach, and just basically it's going to be something very small, and everything else you walk away from. What kind of hazardous materials you may have in your house that you're not aware of, keep those apart. And so it's showing you how to recognize the things in your own situation, in your own home life, whether it's your workplace or your home. Then we also have some basic light search and rescue, which is how do we actually find, make sure everyone's evacuating properly and getting out of that home if you can. Making sure that you have basic first aid, MedOps 1 and 2. It's essentially teaching you how to respond in that kind of emergency when someone else isn't there, but you need to actually be able to do something. So instead of freezing up and not knowing what to do, you have to lean on that training and know, oh, okay, I can handle this and I can do this. So it's building that kit, that preparedness kit, items to have in your home, what to keep in your pantry, what to keep in your car. It's all of that. I would have been at a loss in our Snowmageddon last year if I was one of the few people that it did take me a little bit to get home, but I was in a basic little Malibu car and I made it up a hill, and everybody else was off to the side because I'd weighted down my trunk. I had stuff in my trunk, blankets and different things. So, but without that training, there were a lot of people that were didn't have that were at a loss. So to me, that's the beauty of what we do, is to teach you the basics so that you are prepared when you need to be.
Great, thank you.
Kimberly, may I?
Sure.
One thing about the force multiplier, the men and women who basically serve our county are dedicated and are coming and using all their resources possible. But in the event of something like a Joplin, Missouri event, or even in our floods where we're automatically overwhelmed, we've got to do something at those lesser levels until they can get there and do what they do best. And that's our responsibility, I think, as citizens, is to not be so dependent on them that we put them in unnecessary stress or their resources in unnecessary overload. It's like people calling 911 for things that are not really emergencies, they're inconveniences. So if we can take care of those little things so that when they come rolling up on our neighborhood, we say we're fine, and they recognize that we've had the training because we're taking the right actions, then they know they can go and do the greatest good for the greatest number of people with the least amount of time and resources, that we've pushed that another level. And that's the importance of this, that we're a country found on individual rights and individual freedoms. This is about individual responsibilities that allows us to make the choices to take control of those things we can, and those things we can't. That's why we depend on our men and women in basically that life safety, public safety service. That's when we depend on them. And this is, in my opinion, and I get very passionate about it, this is our giving back to them for their towing that line on a daily basis. We're taking care of what we need to take care of ourselves, and so they can focus on what they need to focus on. So thank you.
Excellent. So the community taking care of itself and using our resources when we need to, but not overtaxing them.
Correctly. Thank you.
Exactly.
And not going past your training. So in other words, we teach to stay at the basic level, don't go above what we train you, that basically do what you can do, and then hold out in time until they can get there.
Great. Thank you for that detailed explanation. And I want to focus on fire and police kind of combined with this question, because we've heard about community response. Let's talk about, that's geared more toward, although children I'm sure can participate at some level, what are we doing to teach our children these things? And I know you guys have programs put in place at both levels, so if you can talk about your agency perspective in preparing our children for these types of events.
Yeah, Kim, I'll make a comment to that, and then I'll get Captain Patelis to weigh in also. It's a perfect opportunity for me to talk about our public safety village down on Al Bishop Drive. We, for a long time in the fire department, since the late 70s, have had a public fire and life safety education program where we would go into the public schools as a part of their curriculum to teach them certain aspects of fire and life safety. And we found out that we were spending a lot of money paying overtime for firefighters to go on into those schools on their off days. So the fire chief then, Chief Denlinger, and Mr. Hankerson approached her about developing the idea of a safety village, which they made several trips to Canada, and today we have a state-of-the-art facility where we teach every single second grader, every fourth grader, in all of the county public schools, all of the city schools of Marietta, all private schools, all home schools, all second and fourth graders go through that village every single year. So we're putting about 20,000 kids through that safety village every year. And in addition to reaching those 20,000 kids from a fire and life safety standpoint, I'll get Captain Patelis to talk about a little history of how they were educating kids, which I think he'll tell you that it was kind of on a request that they would go into an individual school here and there. But going back to the fire department, we not only teach fire and life safety education there, we teach pedestrian safety, we teach pool safety, we teach bicycle safety, and eventually we want to reach every aspect of public safety to our children. And in addition to our children, we're also reaching out already to our seniors, because those are the two most vulnerable age groups when it comes to fire and life safety and internet scam and those kinds of things. That's where we focus a lot of our efforts. So if you've never, I'll tell the public, if you've never visited the Safety Village, there is a huge wow factor, as I call it, when you walk through that facility. And you can have 8 classrooms of kids going through there at one time, and you could walk through there and you will not distract them because they are so focused, they're so in tune to what they're being taught because they're actually participating. We teach them how to, we have a simulated Sparky's house where we fill it full of artificial smoke, where the kids actually get down on the floor, they find the closest wall, they follow that wall till they get to an exit. We have in Sparky's bedroom a heated door that teaches them that if they're asleep in their bedroom and they get up and get to the floor and make it to that door and that door is hot, that tells them not to go out that door and they need to find another means of exit. Therefore, a lot of times that would require a child to go out a second-story window using an escape ladder. So parents, if your kids are coming home asking you to get all these items, pay attention to what they're saying because they're being taught that. But we just have really captured an opportunity to educate our children because they're learning things there that they will not forget in a lifetime. And we've actually had some incidents happen where kids were asked, "How did you know to do that?" And they came back and said, "I learned it at the Safety Village." And that, I tell you, that put cold chills up your back when you hear things like that, to know that you're having that kind of an impact on children. But I'll let Captain Patella speak to the law enforcement side of the Safety Village.
Yeah, Chief, you are correct. Throughout the time, we've been dependent upon schools asking for our input and to come out and talk about things like stranger danger and crosswalk safety and things like that. So the advent of the Safety Village was huge for us. It allowed us to get a curriculum that was consistent for everyone with regard to public safety from the law enforcement perspective. There's officers that are assigned out there, as there are firefighters, and there are full-time instructors that do nothing but teach those children. In addition to some of the things that the chief mentioned, we do train crossing safety, we do electrical safety, as he said, bikes, and there's actually go-karts for them to drive and to learn about what traffic lights mean and what crosswalk signals mean, and how to behave in that environment, how to avoid vehicles. So there's a great collaboration. There's a lot of corporations that have done great things out there. If people don't know, this majority of that is funded by private corporations, which want to be partners in the community, and we appreciate that. We spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make them understand what police officers do and what police officers are for, and how to properly use 911. What is it really there for, and what to expect when you do call 911. And as the chief said, we've had a number of cases where children have called 911 and been able to answer the dispatcher's questions, exactly what's happened, where do you live, what's your name, and they've been trained to respond and give that information, which expedites our response, gives us a better idea of what the emergency is at their home. So again, I think the corporations in the county should be proud of themselves for what they've accomplished there. But we continue to do other safety programs where we will still go out to the schools if upon request. And there's a lot of teachers that do that. They want to have their own classroom of 30 or 40 and have an officer come out. We always are willing to do that and accommodate those. So please call your local precinct, and we're happy to send someone out to do that.
Excellent. I want to stay with you for just a second because both you and Mr. King talked about the appropriate use of 911. So let's expand on that topic just a little bit so we can educate our public about the appropriate use of the 911 system.
Right. The 911 system is in place to make the most expeditious use of our resources that we possibly can. 911 is an emergency line. For those who don't know it, Cobb County Police Department and the radio dispatch room, whether it's fire or 911 or animal control or police, have a non-emergency number, and that number is 770-499-3911. Again, 770-499-3911. So if you have, as Mr. King said, a nuisance call, we don't necessarily, they won't necessarily answer that call on the second ring, but it will get answered. And know if it isn't answered in 2 or 3 or 4 rings, it's because an operator is actually on an emergency call. But what I think the public needs to understand with regard to 911 calls is when that 911 call comes in, we are going to send resources there. Even if the person calls back and says, hey, there's nothing wrong, everything's fine, we're still going to respond someone to that residence, which takes manpower, and time. The reason for that is we don't want to take the chance that there was a crime being committed, there was an assault being committed, there was a home invasion being committed. The homeowner calls 911 and the perpetrator calls back and says, no, everything's fine. So we're going to come out and most likely, depending on the circumstances, the officers are going to request to come in and make sure everything's okay. So it's a huge burden when children pick up the phone and dial 911 and then hang it up and then they won't answer when we call back. The 911 operator on a hang-up will immediately hit a button to dial that number back. But regardless of what the response is, we're sending resources there. So we ask you to help educate your children and be mindful of that and what that takes. Because when we're doing that, we're taking away from a service that someone else probably needs at that time.
And just one more question.
Yes,
Let's
ma'am.
talk about the use of cell phones with 911. I
Okay.
know there's a little bit of confusion sometimes in the calls getting routed.
That's correct. Cell phone technology is dependent upon the location of the cell phone at the time. Cell phones are constantly attempting to locate the closest tower to them to get the best signal, therefore the most quality call. There are times when that cell phone, if you were, say, in Northeast Cobb, out in Precinct 4, Jamerson Road, Sandy Plains Road, Mabry Road, there's a possibility that you could hit a Fulton County or a Roswell, and that's true with the perimeter of the county. Whether you live on the south side, you might get a Fulton County cell phone tower. That cell phone tower would think that you're in that jurisdiction and route it to, let's say, Roswell PD. So that dispatcher is going to take that, and they're going to determine based on what you say and where you're at, and they're going to ask you your location. And we have a system that automatically tells them whether it's our jurisdiction or not. As soon as they enter the data, it's going to pop up and say, no, you're in Roswell. I'm sorry, let me connect you to Roswell, and they'll immediately hook you to the Roswell 911, and vice versa. So you can get that, but that's the technology behind that.
And one more.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
text 911?
Currently, we cannot text 911. That is a new technology that's coming on board. Obviously, there's a lot of resources on the police department or the 911's end to make that happen. But I will tell you, the chief and I were just in a conversation about that. We have been in discussion there in Cobb County is moving, and the 911 center is moving toward to be the capability of receiving text for that. Then it's a good technology in the event that the perpetrator is so close that you're concerned about being able to talk. We would discourage it in cases where you can talk, because the dialogue is much better and we can derive much more information quickly from you if you're speaking to us. But in those events where, and I'll use a scenario that's happened from time to time, someone gets locked in their own trunk, or they're in their residence and they feel like a suspect may be so close they can't speak. We are moving to that technology, and that should be coming forth.
That's good to hear, very exciting. Mr. King,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
from a preparedness standpoint, obviously you have to have a phone to call 911. What happens if the power's out and your batteries are dead, or you don't have a landline, or for whatever reason, everybody in your subdivision has no phone? What advice would you give to the community in those circumstances?
A lot of times, people forget that the cell phone, as convenient as it is, it does have a battery life. It does have the need to find a signal that can sometimes be blocked. So we tell them to know their device, know its limitations, talk to their carrier about that. There are alternatives hitting the market every day, like battery backup packs that can hold a charge that you can plug in, that you don't depend on AC current from a wall source. There's also, for camping and things like that, solar devices that you could plug in and maybe set out on your deck and get a charge. The cell phones, by federal regulation, are required that if they have a battery, even if you don't have a carrier, they have to be able to dial 911. So even if you don't have a service and there's an old cell phone. The phenomenon that we've also seen is many people have dropped their regular landline service for cell phones, or people are moving away from the old Princess-type hardline phone to the portable phones, that those portable phones have to have AC power to run their signal throughout the house to multiple handsets. So it's about making people aware. Now, in the case where you've got an entire neighborhood goes down because of power, It's helpful to kind of know the neighbors that may have those old landlines that will stay up, particularly if the underground phone lines are still in place. There's probably very few places, if any, in Cobb County that have aerial phone lines that would be in a residential area compromised. But it could be that we got to get back to that old, who would we drive and call if we had to? Of course, probably if we've lost power, we've lost internet. So even getting on and emailing or texting or tweeting someone, it's knowing what the limitations of that technology is and thinking outside the box.
Excellent, very good. And, I'm dating myself, and I know I'm dating some of you too, so I appreciate that you let me do that. Because we all used to have access to payphones. And now it's very rare to even be able to find a payphone. So knowing in your subdivision who still has a landline or where you can go to make that call is very, very good information. As the captain said, you call on your common sense and your training, so let's not forget those things as well. Okay, I have several specific questions about emergency preparedness, and while it may not be your area of expertise on the panel, I think all of you are knowledgeable enough to answer each of these. So I'm just going to go down the panel. I'm going to start with Miss Deanna first, though, to give you the opportunity. And I'm just going to ask each of you a question. If anybody else wants to jump in, feel free to do that. And then we'll get to some agency-specific questions. So, Miss Deanna, what advice would you give about the supplies that someone should always have available in their car?
In their car. I have people that tend to chuckle at me because I always carry a cooler with water bottles and snacks like, granola bars or something that I know my kids would eat. So that's a daily thing for me, and it's a habit, and it's just something I pack in the morning before I walk out the door. It's one of those where if it is, as the temperatures rise, if you don't have it in a cooler with cold packs or something like that, you do not want to drink them, because when they're in plastic bottles and the heat rises, that actually leaks toxins into your water. So don't leave your water bottles that are in plastic containers uncooled or left without some kind of cooling system. But you want to have essentially some type of, whether it's water bottles or even the jugs of water, some way to keep them in this portable, and as well as snacks that that they're going to eat, because sometimes they may be the easiest thing to cart around, but number one, if they do have expiration dates, change them out regularly so you don't have old items in your car. But make sure it's something that if you have little children or something, that it's something they will eat.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. King, if you know a weather-related emergency is predicted, what's the first and most important thing you should do to prepare your residents for that?
A lot of what we talk about is knowing where that safe spot is, because our weather incident here is more of that traumatic weather, tornado or in straight line winds that can damage a structure. So find that and know what that safe place is. It may be on a ranch-style slab-built home, center of the building, closet, bathroom, and then have those things that you need there. Just like she said about the car, you want things, water to hydrate yourself, because you're going to be breathing heavier, you're going to be expelling water, you need to stay hydrated. You may need to have something to nourish yourself a little bit, but you want to have safety things. A lot of times we talk about having a protective blanket, literally a blanket that would help shield you from debris. Most people don't think about protecting their head, but we're seeing more and more of that being taught, of having the helmet. And a lot of people, what kind of helmet? Well, it depends on what you've got. There's no need to go out and buy anything special. You can have your bike helmet, you can buy a motorcycle helmet, you could use a hard hat if there is one around that maybe you've gotten. But it's about finding that place that you're going to go when you hear that notification, whether it's the beep, 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 and streaming across the bottom of your TV that it says it's your county, or if you hear the sirens that Cobb County sets off that says something's happening indoors, it means you need to go inside. So it's knowing what the dynamics of the weather is probably going to do, whether it's snow, ice, but our biggest one that we're facing now coming on more recent is going to be those severe thunderstorms with heavy winds that could be straight line all the way to tornadoes.
Okay, thank you. Captain, some people have shelter, as Mr. King alluded to, know where those safe spots are in your home. What should we do to prepare those safe spaces? Are there certain items we should keep in there or things we should be aware of?
I do think so. I think that there's obviously enough information out about where that safe location needs to be. Obviously, the lowest level of the structure that you can occupy, somewhere away from doors and windows, somewhere that is as hardened as it can be. If you have a basement and some of the rooms are drywalled and the others are studded, obviously you want to put as much between you and flying debris as possible. Again, I'd have to echo with Mr. King. The opportunity for debris to fall is likely in those storms, whether it's a tree coming in or a tornado that does significant damage. So ways to protect yourself and your family there, whether it's get under a table, anything that will shield you from things that are coming down. When you have to evacuate to those locations, take your cell phone, take your landline phone with you so that you can communicate with us if we get there and the subdivision has sustained significant damage. We're going to be responding to those calls based on the priority. And if somebody says there's an entrapment, we're going to be getting, with the chief and his folks to try to get to those individuals first. And we need to be able to communicate as much as possible when it comes to that. Again, the water and so on, and I would say maybe even a basic first aid kit to do self first aid for for bleeding or for trauma that you or your children might encounter might be something that you should think of as well.
Great. Chief, what about if those injuries do occur? Sometimes we're told not to move people other than the basic first aid that the captain just talked about. Any generic advice about dealing with people who are injured?
Well, everyone has that, no matter who we are, we have that sense of survival. We're going to do what we need to do to survive. And in a controlled environment where we as responders, we obviously pay close attention to what we do and don't do. I would recommend that all of us have a basic understanding of first aid and those kinds of things, but you have to also realize that your survival instincts are going to kick in if you are injured, and there's going to be certain things that you would typically be able to do otherwise in other times that you would not be able to do. But I would expect everyone to have some sense of bleed control, something like that. If you have some severe trauma, obviously putting the direct pressure on whatever is injured with multiple trauma dressings, and in that case, it may be shirts, it may be pants, it may be whatever you have access to. And so I would recommend that all people know the basic first aids of controlling bleeding. Of course, if you suspect some kind of cervical injury, mobilize that as best you can. Pack stuff around that so that the movement of the person is very limited. And then, of course, the immediate thing would be to call for help as quickly as possible. But I have to tell you, the overall forum is talking about preparedness, and you don't wait till something bad happens and experience it the wrong way. And so the things that we're saying up here, when this conversation is over, we would expect people to act, to do something to prepare themselves. And one of the things that kind of is common through all of these emergencies, especially if you know or if you have a good indication that a weather event is about to happen, contact someone outside the immediate area, whether it be out of state. For instance, I have a sister who lives in Alabama, and if we know that we're in a direct line of a tornado, I'm going to make a phone call and say, look, I'm at home, my wife's at home, these are the kids are at home. If something were to happen, you know who's here. You know where we are. So then if a responding unit comes to our house and they're able to make contact with her, then she can tell him, when he called me, they were in the basement. And so that's the preparing that we're talking about. And even, and I know you may ask a question about this in a few minutes, about valuables and belongings that you may need a record of in case you try to go back and get reimbursement, or your insurance company Put that stuff on a thumb drive. In today's age, have some relative outside the state that has a copy of that. Pictures. There's families that just are devastated because all their pictures and things like that are destroyed. Put those things on a device and give them to family members outside of the immediate area. Put them in a safe deposit box. There's just all sorts of things that we can do that can help us get through those things if we think ahead and prepare.
Excellent. Very good advice. So for our CERT people, we've talked some about things that we need, but there's a couple of specific questions about food safety, like when the power goes out, and you mentioned switching the items out so that they're not out of date. Obviously, our common sense tells us when the power goes out, the food in our refrigerator is going to eventually get warm. But what should we know about the safety of those types of items?
Well, on food safety, when it comes to refrigerated items, there's a lot of resources that tell you what an expiration date is or a sell-by date. The thing that we try to teach in CERT is to look at your pantry. Are there items in your pantry that don't require refrigeration, have minimal preparation even that you can eat virtually raw or uncooked, but that there be things you like? Most of us can go to our pantry and go, there's things in there I hope I don't have to eat. And so we find things that we want to eat and then rotate those, even to the aspect of almost having a family game night, but make it a family emergency night and practice with those foods. Try them. The most devastating thing to the disaster psychology would be, in my most desperate time, I'm now having to eat something I don't like. So to have those things that you like and maybe eat the things you like least early and later, that's some of the things that we talk about.
Interesting. Ms. Deanna, anything to add to that?
I am actually. It's one of the things that there are things you might even have that you don't realize, like camping supplies. There are those little, stoves that you can buy that you can take camping, and things that you can do that if you are in a situation and it's an extended amount of time that, like even just having a handheld can opener for those items that are in your pantry that you can't get into because most of us get so used to using the electric ones. But also having that capability of a lot of those camping supplies double up as an emergency preparedness supply. So whether it's your extra, sleeping bags, whether it's those, different kinds of containers and or cooking type, things that you can have that are camping supplies. So we're not saying go out and buy MREs or different things that, meals ready to eat and things that they're probably going to taste terrible, but it is about knowing yourself and your family enough to know what they will eat in if you're stuck for an extended amount of time and watching those dates and rotating them out.
Very good information. Again, common sense things that we probably don't think about every day. Chief Crowder, I want to focus on fire emergency a little bit. You talked about the preparedness side of it. Educate us a little bit about, teach us about fire safety. What should we know? What should we be prepared for? What are things we should think about if a kitchen fire erupts in our homes, things of that nature?
Well, first of all, let me say that a lot of the questions that people ask me, my answer is it depends, and it does, because in any given situation, if you say, for instance, you have a kitchen fire, well, where has the fire grown to? Is it, if it's immediate and it's a grease fire in a skillet, obviously try to put a lid on it. The last thing you want to do is put water on it. But also to be able to recognize when something has reached a level that is beyond your ability to approach that. And then obviously then you would want to immediately get out and call 911 once you get out of the residence. Don't wait inside the residence to call 911. Also there again, have that plan. If it's at night, where are we going to meet once we exit the building? And I'll say this, once you exit a structure and it's on fire, do not try to go back in. So it depends on at what level the fire is. Most house fires are caused by cooking, and probably the next in times past was smoking, but now that we are getting to the point in society where a lot less people are tobacco users, those numbers have went down quite a bit. But cooking fires is your number one cause of home fires, and having that education. I mean, for you that have elementary kids, you live in Cobb County, they're gonna hound you about having the appropriate cooking techniques and what you can put in a microwave, what you can't put in a microwave, and those kinds of things. So, and of course, having a fire extinguisher very close by to the kitchen area to use that portable fire extinguisher and to know how to use that portable fire extinguisher. I'm afraid we would probably be embarrassed to know how many people do know how to use an extinguisher that they have in their home, and they may have never even used one. And we have that. We have a portable fire extinguisher class that's offered through the Safety Village. That we do a lot of corporate education, where we'll go into a corporation and teach all of their employees how to use portable fire extinguishers. Those things are available. So, biggest thing I would do if I lived in Cobb County, I'd go to cobbfire.org, look at the prevention things that are available to you right here in your own county, and contact who you need to contact, and we'll make sure that you get what you need to prepare yourself for a fire. But anyway, the biggest thing is knowing, first of all, your limitations, not trying to put a fire out that's reached a level that's beyond you being able to do that. And we have a lot of cases where people will go outside, drag a water hose in their house to try to put out the fire themselves, and that's a no-no. Can't replace you as an individual, but all of us can replace a structure.
Right. And two questions about preparedness, because we've mentioned these items before, is the safety ladders. I'm not sure that's what they're called. Escape ladders and fire extinguishers. Tell us what those things cost and where we can get them.
Well, you can, your home supply stores, most all of them have them. It's designed, and by all means, if you get one of these, get somebody to teach you how to use it. That's another thing that we teach at the village. The kids actually go down an escape ladder, and we have a firefighter at the bottom of that ladder it's in a padded pit, and we have the firefighters there to support the kids down, and they actually throw that ladder out themselves and descend down the ladder. So, but yes, those are important items. If you have bedrooms on a second floor, you have fire coming up those steps, and that's your only way out. That ladder is going to be your way of escape. Of course, they teach you other techniques as well, tying sheets together and anchoring those to something inside the bedroom to go down the sheets. But those escape ladders are very important, and they work. And then the portable fire extinguishers. I mean, even having one of those in your trunk of your automobile is important. But smoke alarms. I mean, just there we go back to the good sense approach to preventing fires and to reacting to those fires should you have one in your home. It's key. It's the planning, the preparation, and repetition over and over and over again. And having those discussions when you're riding down the road in the car with the family and you don't want to listen to the radio. Okay, kids, what are we going to do if a fire happens in this room of our house? And just have those conversations.
Very good. Thank you. Captain Patelis, let's talk a little bit about police emergencies. One of the things that we did have a panel on traffic safety earlier, and lots of questions came up about if I'm in a wreck, what do I do? Or if my car stalls, what do I do? And I know, again, as the chief said, some of those things it depends. But let's talk a little bit about those types of situations. What do you do if you find yourself stranded? What do you do if somebody's trying to break into your home? Are there things you can do to prepare for those events ahead of time?
Sure. Which, you want to start with home?
Either one.
Okay. Let's talk about homes for a moment. We get an inordinate amount of calls from citizens who believe or feel like someone has intruded into their home, and sometimes they're actually correct. There is a trend now where people will knock on the door. If no one answers, they'll assume no one's home, and then they'll attempt to burglarize the residence, not realizing that you were home, and placing those citizens in a greater degree of harm or chance of harm. First and foremost, get on your phone and call 911. Seconds matter in those things. So the faster we can get the information and the more coherent you can deliver the information to the 911 operators, the faster we can get response units to you. And trust me, on those cases, we will be responding in force and expeditiously. Secondly, find yourself a safe place to hide within your home. Ideally, a place that has an alternate exit point. If you are in your bathroom and you can lock yourself in a bathroom, it needs to be a room that has a lock on the door that you can lock the handle. Preferably, if there's an exit mechanism there, a window or an exterior door, certainly that's a good opportunity to use that specific spot. If not, be prepared to provide the radio operator as much information as you can, whether you have to peep under the door. It's going to be important for the police officers responding to know a constant update on what's going on. What do you hear? What do you see? What did you hear before? Any descriptions that you can give, all of those things are imperative to us. You need to know that we'll immediately respond and we'll check the exterior of the residence for entry points. If we see none, then we're going to do another assessment and see whether we need to force entry. But if someone is consistently inside saying, I see them, they're in here, and this happens from time to time, we are coming in and we are coming to you. A doorway is really not going to stop the police when you're asking them to come in and help. So with those, I would say make sure that you have just a continuous and do not hang up on the operator. Sometimes people will call, they'll have that problem, they'll give the first information, then they hang up. We're trying to recontact. We need a constant feed of information to stay as abreast on what's going on as possible until the officers get there. The second thing is the radio operator will be able to provide consistent feedback to the caller as well. The officers are there. You're going to hear them around the house. What cars should be in the driveway. They're going to be asking all those questions, which are important for the officers to know as they arrive and as they begin to navigate the scene there.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about vehicles.
Vehicles. Vehicles. You talked a little bit about traffic safety. In Georgia, we ask, and it's actually a law, that if your vehicle is involved in an accident and there's no injury and the vehicles are movable, that you move them from the roadway. The officers will do their best to reconstruct the accident and take the witness information. There are times when vehicles either become disabled because of an accident or because of a mechanical failure. So the question is, do you stay in your car if you can't move it? And again, I'm going to have to go back to what the chief said. It depends. There are times that you are much, much safer to stay in your vehicle. I'll give you for instance, I-285, and you're down at Atlanta Road and you've been able to make it to the right-hand shoulder of the road. Get off the road, turn on your flashers, call for help, we'll respond. Conversely, that might not be the best solution if you've had to stop against the median there or against the wall in a curve where you know it's blind. So again, common sense has to prevail. Am I more likely or less likely to get harmed there? We see a lot of times people will actually exit. They know that it's likely that they'll get hit from behind because the visibility is so limited. So they'll exit their vehicle, and a lot of times, Kim, they'll even get up on the wall in there or get to an area of safety where they feel much more protected rather than sitting in their car. If you're sitting in the car, keep your seatbelt on, and I'll just say this, if you're not comfortable with where you're at, stay on the phone with the 911 operator. They will stay on the phone until the police officer gets there for you. And again, we talked about this before. Don't hesitate to call. I would say that if you're traveling and you're disabled, even though you might have called your husband or a friend, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, call the police. We will come and stand by with you and make sure that the right help gets there.
Excellent. Thank you. I wonder if our CERT folks have anything to add to the home preparedness or car preparedness before we go to another topic.
Well, I think this is going to be the segue to say that this whole panel shows, because every topic we've talked about is something that we teach. I recognize people sitting out in the audience who are actually been through the CERT training that are probably biting at the bit going, that's what we were taught, that's what we were taught. We actually have been blessed here in the county that the director made sure that we, in support of the fire department, we've got a device that we're able to teach people the acronym PASS, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep, for that personal fire extinguisher use, that they're able to actually try it without the active live fire to get the technique down and get that experience that would otherwise cause them to have to use a fire extinguisher at home or something of that nature. So they're able to do that, and then they can go to the fire safety village at times that they have it there and actually do a real live fire so that they get the experience of the heat and things. But it's all about the common sense, as Captain Patel has said. The one thing I don't want to feel like I'm bashing cell phones, because that's actually been one thing that's helped in these to clear the roadway, is if a person's got the smartphone, go ahead and take a picture of it so that they've got that information, and then safely get that vehicle out of the way. And that's another thing we share with them, that it's okay. It used to be don't move the vehicle, but now the law is actually in place that you may be causing greater harm to others if you don't. So it's getting those partnerships and having the men and women that do the first responder come in and help teach, as well as even our citizens teaching peer-to-peer, what we call the common sense part. So I would say this whole thing, my thing that I would like to be sure is resonant here, is we have that training. It's free training. I almost think we need to charge for it, because probably more people would come. They feel like they're getting something of value if they have to pay for it. But it is free training available to all Cobb County citizens. It's really, if you work here, if you worship here, if you live here, you need this training. It can happen while we're at work. And we're looking for places that do it. If there's already a church congregation, a homeowners association, they got gathered, we have training team and will travel. So we're looking for as many opportunities to help share and to prepare people for just exactly what we're talking about here.
Excellent. Very good.
Can
Ms.
I-
Deanna, yes, I was going to ask you a question, but go ahead and if you want to add to that.
Just a brief thing on what everybody has talked about, and it's all about the being prepared ahead of time so that your reaction time is faster, because one thing I found very fascinating at KSU, we do what's called a dorm burn. They build a simulated dorm out on the campus green. Once a year, the Cobb County Fire Department comes out and assists and puts the fire out. But what has been fascinating to me is the instant from when it ignites to when it is fully involved. When that whole dorm room is fully involved and on fire, you have seconds. And that is how we teach our students how important it is, that preparedness and being ready in reacting. It's a very visual to me. I know you guys have participated every year with us, and to me, it's just very fascinating how fast that happens. And if you're not prepared and you don't have those steps in place ahead of time, then it could cause harm to you and your family. So
Okay.
I think that's very important.
So you, Mr. King and Ms. Deanna both have talked about kind of what CERT does. Tell us some examples of things that you may have responded to and what your role was in those responses.
Okay. First, CERT is basically from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management. It was designed as a catch and release training. It's basically meant for everybody to know what they need to do to take care of themselves, because even if you're a first responder, if your mind's not in the game, then you're kind of distracted. So if you know that your family is taken care of, that you're taken care of, it's important as a training. And what we've done here in the county is to emphasize that when a disaster happens, and how CERT emerged largely was that people that wanted to go help ended up becoming victims. They ended up becoming casualties, or they at least exhausted additional resources because they didn't know how to help. And it's about being ready to take care of yourself, but others as well, and knowing when to go, when not to go, that you don't become a victim or a greater resource tax. So if you want to be involved and respond, it's what I think is necessary training, so that when you show up, we already know where you're starting at. You're already in the mindset to do something. So if you're a Red Cross volunteer, or you're a Salvation Army volunteer, or you're part of a faith-based response, just about every faith-based organization has some type of what they call disaster ministry. By having this training, you've got more of a heart and certainty that I can now step across that threshold and do something for somebody else. So we're doing that. The training is more of a awareness. Once you're trained, if you want to do more, here in Cobb County, we've identified places that you can do more. Search and rescue team that we've got, that when the police department is out there, these men and women are when somebody goes missing, they have to step away from their car. Sometimes they have to move out of their beat areas. We as citizens can't do their job. We can't police, but we can beat the brush. We can go door to door. So we're trying to build that group. We've also got a emergency operations center support team building, a damage assessment team building. But we're trying to guide people to things that they're passionate about. If they're passionate about pets, there's a presidential directive after Katrina, that government is responsible for making sure that pets and livestock are taken care of during disaster. I don't want to get familiar with a new variety of dog during a stressful event. So if we can help animal control by volunteering for animal control and handle different breeds, because even pets include slither, creepy, crawly, as well as bow wow and frou frou. So if we can help Cobb County Animal Control and work with those animals, or help some of our rescue facilities during non-disaster times, when a disaster comes, we've got a greater chance to keep ourselves calm so that we don't pass that energy, that excitement on to the animal that's already stressed. So there's all kinds of opportunities for people to participate beyond their basic CERT training. And that's what we're trying to emphasize more than anything, is be prepared for yourself, but be prepared that when that humanitarian pain calls your heart to go help your fellow man, that you truly have the knowledge and the capability to do it, rather than, I want to help, but I don't know how. And then you're going to be put in a hurry up and wait mode at a volunteer reception center, because we don't know what your talents are. We don't know what your skills are. We're going to have to interview you. If not, we may be putting you in harm's way, or we may be putting you in a situation where you're not equipped properly for the situation, or you're going to use up water, hygiene, food, just to be in that standing and wait mode. So it may be that you just need to wait until we call specifically. But the CERT training, it gets you that first step. It's that intro to let you know that I am capable, I am willing, I am wanting to do more than just me. That's it in a nutshell.
Great. And Miss Deanna, let's continue with that just a little bit. Once you go through the training process, do you have to be retrained or recertified? Tell us a little bit about the continuing part of that.
Well, basically, the national training stands by itself. So in other words, once you've been through CERT, that can be it. That can be all you've done. We highly recommend when you go through the training, for like your, in the MedOps part, for your cold weather or your hot weather instances, we recommend that seasonally you look back at your book and you see those symptoms so that you'll recognize them better. To go back through that. But like Bernard was saying, that if there are other things that interest you, if there's very specific things that you have a passion about or you want to do, then we try and make sure that you reach out to those, because there are much other higher levels of training, different types of opportunities, and even free training primarily, that you can then increase those levels and maintain your credentials if that's what you're looking for. We have several people that are even going for to be a certified emergency manager. That's not their main job, but it actually is resumeable. The CERT training is resumeable. It is something that you can put on there. It's nationally recognized. It is also something that if, in case of an emergency, say you're faith-based or your organization, your business wants to be a shelter. If you want to be reimbursed in case of a national disaster or a local disaster, you have to have that recognized, and you have to have the documentation in place. That's part of what we teach, is how and what you're looking for, not just what supplies to have, but how to track that, and how, because volunteer hours count just as much as what supplies you're using. I do a lot of higher ed because I work for Kennesaw State University, so a lot of my focus has been in multi-hazard for higher ed. We do a lot of, we're a point of dispensary for if there's some type of medical emergency. We're a place that people would go to get medicine, primarily internal first, and then we would open the doors for the public. So there's other trainings based on either where you're at workplace-wise or whether you're at neighborhood-wise. That you can find out what is out there and be involved. And again, whatever you're interested in, we can definitely find you that next level of training that you're interested in. So the hard part is not to get too stretched thin. So.
As those of us who volunteer tend to do. So
Absolutely.
thank you for that word of warning. So we can come back to preparedness, because I'm going to ask you at the end to give us your elevator speech. For the one thing you would tell a group of people to do to be prepared. And we've talked about a lot of that, but just to reiterate that before we end the panel, But I want to talk a little bit now about the aftermath. So some emergency has happened, we've been affected. What's the next step? From fire, police, and community standpoints, what do we tell people to do from this point forward?
We, from a fire standpoint, if we have a, after the fire brochure is actually what it's called, that we will supply the homeowner or the resident with when we get ready to leave the scene. And, we also have a disaster recovery program that we offer throughout the county, where we have a number of vendors on a call list that provide victim assistance in conjunction with Red Cross. There is a number of resources out there that help people get through these situations that they experience. And for example, if we were to have a fire and it be a fire to where you could not occupy the house, one of these vendors, whoever it is that's on call, because we rotate call between these vendors, they will come out, they will secure your resident. They will not bill you individually. They will bill your insurance company. If your insurance company doesn't pay, the end, see you later. That's the chance that they take. But they will come out, they will secure your home. If you require shelter, they'll provide you a place to stay. And so those things are available, and we, on the fire scene, after or in the process of mitigating the incident, we will make that call to the 911 center, have them contact the on-call, that disaster recovery company that's on call for that given time. They will respond out. It's not a service that you have to take. If they get out there and you say, no, I don't want you to do that, I'm afraid my insurance company won't pay or whatever, then you have that choice as a homeowner. But it's more than just a securing your home. It's okay, you don't have family here, you know, you have no one here, what now, where are you going to go? And they provide that. So we have avenues in place that can help people get through those things, and we give them guidance to get through those things. So we feel like we have put together something that for the residents of Cobb County, that we'll take care of them. Maybe not so much the fire department, but we have vehicles in place that will take care of them, whether it's the Red Cross or one of these disaster recovery companies that do business in the county.
Great, thank you. Captain?
A little bit different. The emergencies that typically we get involved in deal more with individual victims there. And I'll have to give a plug to our District Attorney Vic Reynolds and our Solicitor Barry Morgan, and they both have tremendous victim assistance advocates that work in their offices, that work diligently to work with the victims of crime to help them overcome what they've gone through, whether it be counseling, whether it be helping them get restitution. So we work very, very closely with them. We also partner with a number of agencies within Cobb County, such as children's counseling, grief counselors for the schools. So there's a number of resources out there that we partner with from the police department to try to take care of the individual needs of crime victims, whether they be assault or any type of victims that we come across. The police department here is very good about if you need help, we're going to get you help. And I will tell you that our police chief has the philosophy: if you need Cobb County Police Department, you will get the Cobb County Police Department, and we'll do everything we can. We are here to serve the citizens and to protect the victims and the folks that can't protect themselves, and we're going to throw everything we got at that.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words as well. Mr. King?
Well, it's kind of about resiliency. It's about, and resiliency starts with the planning that Chief Crowder started out with, and it's been resounded here. It goes on into the mitigation of knowing how to get something back to normal. And one thing that we talk about a lot here across the county and all of our partnerships is opening up streets as quickly as we can, getting schools back to normal, because any parent that's got kids in schools knows that when that school door is not open, their life is disrupted beyond the normal when the expectation is there. So getting those schools back open, getting the grocery store, getting things that says normal back, because that helps the tension, that helps the stress. As an individual homeowner, it's important to know what your homeowner's insurance policy says. We talk about every year, you need to kind of pull that out and look at it and think about what's happened in the past year. What types of claims have you possibly had that was that home personalized emergency, whether it was a sewer pipe that backed up or power that went out? What things can you do in the upcoming year to help mitigate that so that it doesn't stress you? But knowing what the policy covers, particularly when it comes to things like debris damage, water damage, a lot of people think flood means any kind of water, but it talks about flood plains. And when we experienced what they call was the 500-year flood, that's a 1 out of 500 probability that the rain is falling at the moment. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be here in the 500 years when the next one comes. It could happen this next year. So knowing where it's at and paying attention to, even to support Cobb County stormwater runoff, of paying attention to our storm drains and our streets. I don't mean to take this opportunity to trumpet something, but every litter that we throw out is something that goes in that could block our stormwater, that could back up that infrastructure, that could cause flooding in areas that wouldn't flood. Whether it's a plastic bag or whether it's leaves that were blowing down the storm. So it's just making people aware and accountable for things that we could do to help ourselves as taxpayers and maximizing our value. So it's that, let's get back to normal, and how can we plan to reinstate and get back to normal rather than go, woe is me, in that moment. That's the thing that we try to emphasize.
Okay, great. Ms. Dan, I'm going to take a break for 1 second and just remind the audience that if you have questions, go ahead and start sending those up. We'll be wrapping up in the next 10 minutes or so. So, Ms. Deanna.
Basically, as a citizen in the aftermath, our hope is that you have done the pre-planning, that you've actually taken advantage of that training, be it CERT and or anything online, that you have those kits in your home or in your car available so that you have those resources, the water, the food, the blankets, and in cases of snow and things like that, you have shoes like boots. If you're a lady and you wear high heels or something, that you have something available in either your vehicle in your home to take care of yourself for those next couple of days and or however long it would take for everything to get back to normal. So that pre-planning, in my opinion, is extremely important. If you have not done that and you find yourself in the aftermath, the key is to remain as calm as possible, because it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be different, and someone is going to end up being that leader, whether you like it or not, because the rest of your family is going to look to that one person typically. And so just being that calming influence, and just kind of tap into that common sense of what do I have, what can I use, and just essentially don't, even when you're CERT trained, you do not self-report. So in other words, it is not something that you're going to be like, ta-da, I'm here, I'm going to save the day, and no, not really. You are to save yourself, your family, and then if there are neighbors that need you, that's the extent of your outreach. If you have then joined a VOAD or a vocational organization or a vocational volunteer organization or some other type of program that they know your training, they know what you have, the extent of your knowledge, and they've told you and they contact you and say, we need you here, that's when you then go and do more. Other than that, you are taking care of yourself, your family, and any neighbor that is near you. And so to me, that's, it's just being as prepared as you can and coping until everything else and the first responders can get there to assist.
Very good information. Thank you so much. So we're coming to the time when I want to ask each of you if you have any final parting thoughts for our live and TV audience. And then if you will take the opportunity to leave us with some resources. I know the chief mentioned your website, if you don't mind mentioning that again. But whatever resources you would like to share with the panel or with the audience as well, so that we can leave them not only educated, but also with additional information that they can find. Chief Carter, do you mind starting?
Yeah, well, Kim, obviously, we live in an information age, and Bernard said something earlier that really resonated with me, and it involves that personal responsibility. There's search engines out there on the computer that you could type in any one of these questions that you've asked us tonight, and the answers are just unlimited, and they all basically focus on the same topic of preparation and how you prepare. And I would challenge any of you, okay, what Chief Crowder, what would you think I would need to include in my go kit? Something that I could grab real quick if my house is on fire? Well, that information is out there for you. But specifically for Cobb County, if you go to cobbfire.org, there's links on there that gets you to our education division. There's links on there that get you to our prevention section, such as the fire marshal's office. And let me say one other thing, Kim, that I meant to mention earlier. We're seeing an increase in fires that are starting on the outside of residents and then working their way up to the foundation of the resident. And if it's wood, obviously that fire will travel up the side of that residence, go into the attic, and it be burning on the outside. And many times the resident does not even know that the fire is burning. And just be aware that once that fire gets in the attic, that it's above the sprinkler system if you have a residential sprinkler. So one thing that we start seeing in the summer months is people discarding cigarettes. In the wintertime, people taking their ashes out of their fireplace, putting it in a metal container, sitting it on their back deck, not knowing that how much heat is still in those ashes. And so it's those good sense things that prevent fires. And so I would ask to be mindful of how you discard smoking cigarette ashes, cigarette butts, because during the dry months, all it takes is that one flicked into the pine straw. And of course, we know how pine straw burns and how quickly that can get into the side of your house. And but those are some things that prevention is something that if we would exercise some due diligence on our own part, if we really want to be educated in how to prepare for emergencies that involve fire. The information is out there. It's just a matter of us as individuals taking the time to research that and putting a plan in place with our family, making sure everybody's on the right page, knowing what we're going to do in the middle of the night should there be the smoke alarms going off. And then, of course, that includes changing your batteries in your smoke alarms. Typically, a rule of thumb that we use in Cobb County is every time you move your clock, change battery in your smoke alarms. That's a good rule of thumb. Once a month, go by your smoke alarm, hit that test button, make sure it's operating properly. And I'll say this, if you do not have smoke alarms in your home, you can go by your local fire station in the county. They will issue you at least one smoke alarm for your home. And then we would follow up with you should we recognize that there is a need there for additional smoke alarms. We're here to provide a service, and prevention is the key, and prevention works. So do what you can individually to prepare you and your family for in case there's a fire. And if the fire never happens, you never have to worry about it. So prevention, 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 and plan, plan, plan.
Thank you, Chief. Captain?
Yes, I think a few parting things here for the audience. If you find yourself the victim of a crime, I'd regress just a little bit with what the chief said. Again, preparedness and what we talked about before, being vigilant, knowing your surroundings, walking and working in groups. When you're leaving the mall, if you realize you've parked someplace that's out of the way, get somebody to go with you. Get mall security to help you. If you are the one who closes a business late at night, we don't mind coming and watching you leave, right? Or have another employee wait. Don't allow yourself to be in a position where you become an easy target or an easy victim. However, in the event should you, we have a little thing that we try to keep people aware of, and that is run, fight, run, hide, and fight. All right, those are the three things that you need to do. If you can get away, by all means do that. If you can't and you have to hide, then hide. If you can't do that and it's there, fight and fight for everything that you can. Make as much noise as you can, draw attention to yourself, get noticed by someone somehow. That's going to be your best defense against becoming a victim of an abduction or an assault or carjacking or any of those things that you see on the TV that tend to create significant physical harm and or death to victims out here. So we would want you to, A, know your surroundings, and B, if you have to, be prepared to fight as hard as you have to. The Cobb County Police Department does have a crime prevention unit. We'll come out and we'll do homeowners association meetings. We'll do civic meetings. We'll do church meetings if you have a congregation that wants to get together. We have a specific group of officers who come out and teach that. We can talk on specific topics if you want to. If you want to talk about elder abuse, if you want to talk about internet fraud, computer crimes, we have experts that we can have come out and do that for you. I would also say, if you're not a member of PENS, that's PENS, that's Police Email Notification System. If you'll go to cobbcounty.org, click on the Police Department tab, you'll see everything that we offer with regard to that. But if you join PENS, then every time the detectives or the police precinct in your area where you live has something they need you to know about, a crime trend, a lookout, something that's been going on specific in your area, or something that's going to interrupt your traffic on a Saturday morning, a road race. We'll put those things out. We also do quarterly meetings that each precinct and invite you to attend, and we'll have a subject matter expert to talk about it. It might be firearm safety, it might be fall prevention for falls, but we'll have some law enforcement related topic on a quarterly basis. And it's a good time to interact with your precinct commander, your command staff at that precinct, and some of the officers, and ask questions and get to know us. We'll do anything for HOAs. We're here to serve the community, so please let us know what we can do.
Thank you very much. Mr. King?
I have to say that basically our first responders, our lifesavers, have basically set the tone. We need to be prepared. They've given the options. Some of the things is Cobb County, through Cobb County's website, you can look up EMA for Emergency Management Agency. It'll take you to our webpage that gives you some of the links. You can also use ready.gov, which is the federal government all the way down through GEMA, the Georgia Emergency Management, and down to us as Cobb Emergency Management. It's a resource. It gives you some free things, list of things that you can have. We are becoming more and more technologically driven, but a lot of people believe that they get better by interacting with folks and sitting in a class, talking back and forth and sharing ideas, because there may be a question that you have not thought about that somebody else will ask. So we encourage you to try to take those open classes. The good thing is through Cobb County Emergency Management, through the main police and 911 center where the Emergency Operations Center and EMA is located, we offer a class every month. And we can take up to 30-something people in that class, but we know that there's a lot more people that take it. So we've done things like extend over into KSU to offer through that to their population of their faculty and staff and students first. We hope to go through the continuing ed there. But we've also reached out this week, started one of our first faith-based groups specifically to their parishioners. We've started with nearly 2,000 parishioners. We're working with our Latino population. We've also trained instructors in American Sign Language so that they can deliver directly to our hearing impaired and deaf community without translating from a speaking person, directly teach from the text. So we're doing as much as we can, and we ask you as citizens to help us do more. If you've got a large place, it's a place where we can gather, we can come and teach. All you have to do is ask. Our job is to say what obstacles are there and then get those obstacles out of the way to give you the tools that you need to maximize your safety so that the men and women that do serve us here can help those that aren't capable of doing or haven't been willing or had their head in the sand saying it won't happen to me, it won't happen today. So look at the program, look at the chance to get the training, look at the resources we have to offer. Yes, it's free. If you have to pay me, the county will find a way to utilize your additional funds to donate. A little humor here, but free tends to be kind of this strange thing. If it's free, it must not be of value, but I think it's very much of value.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Ms. Deanna?
I'm here primarily as a support to Bernard because I do teach for Cobb EMA as well as multiple other organizations that we've worked with and helped to grow. But we have definitely launched it there at KSU. So if you're listening and you're part of the Kennesaw State University community, cert@kennesaw.edu. Email me. I'll get you in touch with how to actually sign up for the classes and so forth. Right now we are offering it primarily to our faculty, staff, and our students. And hope to grow it again. Like Bernard said, we're trying to work it. It takes time to get it in the multiple venues that we want to get it to, but Again, our goal is, and that's part of what we've been passionate about, is to get it in front of every citizen and to make sure that everyone is as prepared as they can be. Because while when we teach this, we think it's common sense, but it really is helpful because we hand you the tools of here's a list of what you need, here's all the resources to be as prepared as you can. So email us at cert@kennesaw.edu or definitely go through Cobb BMA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to each of our panel members, I want to personally say thank you very much for being here, for your time and your energy, and obviously your passion about this subject. So I appreciate you being here and your participation in the panel. Thank you to the Neighborhood Safety Commission for continuing to host very educational panels for our community. And with this, I'll turn it back over to you, Trish.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for attending and watching on Channel TV 23 this evening. We especially want to thank our dynamic panel members and moderator. We are honored to have each of you as our moderator and panel members this evening. Our community is very fortunate to have each of you helping the citizens of Cobb to prepare for an emergency event. We especially thank you and appreciate your dedication to protect, educate, and to provide information and respond daily to all emergencies in Cobb. You are appreciated, and we thank you for your daily service to save lives and to support the citizens of Cobb County. A special thank you to Cornelius for broadcasting the discussion on TV 23 this evening. Please join us Wednesday, April the 15th at 7 p.m. when our topic will be protecting our children. Thank you again for attending tonight, and good night.